Hi, welcome to the Fire Mountain Gems and Beads Jewelry Making Studio. My name is Rose. Today, we're going to learn about these great wire working earrings. Now they look really difficult, but they're really not, because we're going to use this great coiling gizmo to do this effect, and you're going to love it because it's so easy. While you're at it, you might want to go check out the resources section at the Fire Mountain Gems and Beads website, because there's lots of great techniques for wire working there. Check it out someday. The square knot earrings. Starts off with my great coiling gizmo. We have several different varieties of this machine. This is my favorite one because it's got this nice chuck on it for attaching my wire. And I'm going to start off with a length of wire. I could use a rod that comes with it, but I can do this directly on the wire I'm going to use to make the earrings. The first thing I'm going to do is cut about a 6 to 8 inch section of wire and make sure it's straight using my little wire straightener. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight for this, but it's handy. Just straighten it out a little bit. There we go. Then I'm going to feed it through this side of my coiling gizmo and into my wire chuck. Now I'm going to wrap this with some 22 gauge zebra wire. This is a green one, and I've got my spool tamer on there so I can just pull out as much wire as I want. It's going to take a couple of feet. And I will put that into the chuck along with the copper wire that's already there. And tighten my chuck down. There we go. And now we can start coiling. Just using the handle, just start turning it around. And I'm guiding it a little bit with my finger here to make sure that each coil goes right next to the coil before it. You'll notice that my copper wire is a little bit bent. It won't matter at all. I'm just going to keep going. And I need 2 inches of this coil. So I'm going to keep turning that handle. I'll measure it occasionally until we get to 2 inches. Okay, so you can see now I have coiled 2 inches of wire, so I can trim off my green wire, open up the chuck, and pull that wire out. Now we're going to need a blue wire, the same sort of idea, to make a whole pair of earrings. So I'm going to straighten out this little bit of wire. Feed it through my device and into my chuck, and get my blue wire. Then I'm going to pull out about 2 feet of that wire, 3 feet, and I'm going to put that into the chuck with my copper wire. And close the chuck down, just like your drill at home. Trying to get both wires to stay in there at the same time. Come on, baby. There we go. There we go. And I can start winding again. And now I'm going to need 2 inches of blue wire. You can imagine, with all the different colors of zebra wire we have available at Fire Mountain Gems and Beads, you can make all kinds of variations on these earrings. Okay, I've got the 2 inches now of my blue coil, so I'll trim this one up. And now that I've got those 2 coils for 1 pair of earrings, I would also make 2 more to make my second pair of earrings. But I'm going to get rid of this machine so that we have some room to do the rest of this fun earring. Come back in just a second. And we're back. Okay, I've made myself a little bit more space to work in after making the coils. And here is my blue coil and my green coil. We're going to turn this now into a square knot. I usually would just eyeball this, but I know for instructional purposes, you guys like to have very specific measurements, so I'll be specific this time. First of all, I'm going to cut off that little tail that I don't need, and also on the green. There we go, and I've got 2 inches. Oh, look at that, I accidentally cut my copper wire. No worries, I'll just get rid of it. Because we're going to move this down. Okay, so we have our 2 inches of coiled wire, And now I'm going to make a simple loop. First, I'll make a 90-degree bend. Like I said, you like specific instructions, so I'm actually going to trim this to exactly 1/2 inch. Well, not exactly. I never do anything exactly. So we're going to trim that down to 1/2 inch. There we go. And to make sure my coils are the same on all sides, I'm going to use my Weber's pliers, because the shaft of this Weber's pliers is the same diameter all the way down. It's easy to make a loop that will be the same size every time I make a loop. Look at that beautiful Weber's loop. There we go. And I'm going to push the coil up till it meets that coil. On this end, I also need to make a simple loop, but I'm going to be bending this wire, so I need to give it a little bit of space. So I'm going to give it 1/8 inch of space here for the wire to be able to move around in. So I'm going to make my 90-degree bend right there. I didn't measure the 1/8 inch, I'm sorry. But now I'm going to do another 1/2 inch. I'm just getting it close here. I want this to be a 1/2 inch. So I need to trim it a little bit more. A little bit more. There we go. And use my Weber's again to make a loop that is exactly the same size as the loop on the other end. I also want to make sure they're parallel. So I'm going to rotate this a little bit. Check that out. Nice, huh? Loops are the same size. And I'll do the same thing on my blue wire. 90-degree bend. I'm going to trim that off to about 1/2 inch. Oh, that's a little bit long. We'll trim that a little bit more. That looks good. Using my Weber's to make a loop. I don't like that loop as well, but I can manipulate it a little bit and make it the way I want it to be. There we go. That's a beautiful loop. Push the blue wire back down to this end. Make another 90-degree bend here, but leave some leeway, a little bit of flex space for the wire. Make a 90-degree bend. Cut it to 1/2 inch. Just a little bit long. There we go. And using my Weber's again, make my loop. And I can manipulate that just a little bit. Make sure the loops are parallel. There we go. Now we're starting to form this square knot. And again, I'm going to use the Weber's. This is a different set, of course, with a different diameter. And this is so cool. But do be aware that zebra wire is a coated wire, so you want to be a little bit gentle so you don't rub that coating off. But I'm going to grip it gently with my Weber's and just form it up over the top. And I'm going to squeeze it in a little bit. To make this sort of a U sort of shape. I also need to have those loops parallel to each other. There we go. Something like that. We'll refine that more as we go along. And the same thing with the green one. Just wrap it up and over the Weber's. Try and get those loops to meet each other. Squeezing it in a little bit. Now we need to form the square knot. I find it's a little easier if I give it a little bit of bend just with my fingers. This is copper wire, so it bends quite easily. A little bit of a bend there. And now that end tucks in here. This end tucks in here. And push the two together. There we go. And you can manipulate the wire as you go to narrow it down, refine it the way you want it to look, and make your little square knot. Again, I still like to have these loops parallel to each other. So twist that one out a little bit, twist these in a little bit. There we go. And you can see this one's smaller than this prototype I made. I thought it looked a little prettier smaller, so I made this one just a little smaller. That is the basis, the most important part of our earring, and all we have to do now is add the ear wire. I will use this copper jump ring, and all I have to do is go through these two loops and through my ear wire and close it. And on the other end, we're going to add a fire polish bead dangle. So I'm going to use a copper ball-tipped head pin. Put on a little, I think this is 4 millimeter. And a rondelle. And my fire polish bead. And a rondelle. And a 4 millimeter round. And now I will make a wrapped loop. And the reason I choose to do a wrapped loop on this one because copper wire is very soft and this particular wire is a very small gauge. And so for security purposes, I make a wrapped loop on this one. So I leave a little bit of a stem, that's where my wraps will go. Make a 90-degree bend. This time I'm just going to use my regular old round nose pliers. Make a loop, reposition the jaws, finish the loop, and wrap the loop. And trim off that little excess. Making sure that wire doesn't fly off and get someone. And I do a little refining there. Okay. Then one more jump ring. We're almost there, folks. Go through my drop that I've just created, through these last two loops there, and close it. Easy breezy. And you thought that was going to be tough. Check it out. Great square knot earrings made with the coiling gizmo and copper wire. I hope you enjoyed this project. Thank you for joining me at Fire Mountain Gems and Beads, and make sure you check out the resources we have available for all kinds of wire working techniques. FireMountainGems.com. Happy beading!